I fell in love with my wife Lilith almost right from the start. I met her at the local library and mistook her for a librarian. She is very understated and wears her intelligence on her sleeve, so naturally I assumed she was the one to ask about which would be the best section to find argumentative books on atheism. Atheism? She said with a slightly amused, tinted smile. Well, I couldn't tell you where to go since I don't work here. The only assistance I can give is to tell you that there is a big guy up in the sky. Normally, this would be my cue to rebuff, break down, and unleash my own flavor of rationalism down her throat. But I was too busy staring at her amber-colored eyes. So beautiful, I thought when she looked into me. It's funny, I had originally wanted to ask her about books, but ended up asking her phone number instead. 5 months and over 50 dates later, I proposed to her, and we had been happily married for the past 5 years. Well, I thought we were happily married. Sure, we didn't finish each other's sentences or share every single like or belief, but at the end of it all, we were content and secured in our mutual love, or at least I thought she was. So you can imagine my shock when I found her in our bed with someone else. All right, I will rewind a bit for context. I work the closing shift at O'Malley's. It's a dive bar filled with those sad souls who find community with each other while looking down the neck of a bottle. I'm not complaining. It paid the bills and the tips ensured I always had some pocket cash between checks. On this night, there was a big brawl that broke out between two patrons. They were usuals and pretty much hated one another. It was a weird relationship, almost like this hatred was some strange form of friendship. But the enmity boiled over on this particular night with bar stools flung, decor broken, and both leaving worse for wear in the back seat of a squad car. My boss was called in by the cops, and since everyone else had left, he told me I should go too, and we would close for the night while he cleaned up. I didn't argue. I was happy to be returning home to my Lilith at a semi-sensible hour. It was 12:05 when I pulled up in our driveway. The lights in the house were off, save for the firelit red glow I could see coming from our bedroom window. Lilith always liked to sleep with a flame going. I stepped quietly into the house, watching my step so that I wouldn't make a ruckus and wake her, just in case she was already asleep. But she wasn't asleep. I could hear her from across the house, moaning that familiar moan that had become music to my ears. I wasn't sure what to do, really. I assumed she was pleasuring herself, and she might be off-put to be walked in on. I was about to go out to the porch on the front yard to have a cigar when I heard something else. Have you ever heard Tibetan throat singing? It's this thing monks do over there where they chant in a way that actually sounds like multiple tones and voices at once, but it's all just one guy. Well, I heard something like that accompany her moans, only it wasn't foreign chanting, but carnal noises. Oh, yes, oomph, that sort of thing. It would be disquieting in itself if it wasn't accompanied by the guttural sounds of my wife and the creaking of our bed. What the hell? I said to myself, and I tiptoed slowly up the hallway until I reached our room. The door was closed, of course, so I had to turn the handle in the slowest of motion and inch the door open. Of course it creaked. I winced, but their noises didn't stop. Our room layout is a bit weird, and you can't see the bed immediately upon stepping in. But when the fire is going at night, the shadows cast on the wall can paint a clear enough picture of what's going on in bed. I don't think I have to go into great lengthy detail describing the shadows too in the throes of passion make. And if you don't know, then use your imagination. Yup, it looks just like that. I was in a state of shock. Then sadness, but anger soon flared, and I was about to make my way to confront. I was a barkeeper and had my fill of fights before, though the strange and sinister noises that were coming from my wife's lover did put a slight crimp in my confidence. But before I saw something in the shadows that made me stop. It froze me in a weird, surreal repulsion and terror. It was atop her, thrusting back and forth, and from what I could tell, her legs were wrapped around him. But when she pulled them down, something snake-like in appearance rose up from his backside. Only instead of a head, it looked like a single fork. That's a tail. I thought, that's a goddamn tale. My eyes, already open in disbelief at her infidelity, turned into two terrified saucers, and as much as I wanted to slowly step forward and see firsthand what this thing on my wife was, I couldn't. Things became even stranger when Lilith's moans were supplanted by a chanting that I could only assume was in Latin. I don't recall what she said. It was something about compromisor. Over and over she said this with increasing fervor all the while. His multi-voice primal noises became even more intense. She was reaching for the bedstand now, and a few seconds later, I saw the shadow of a knife in her clutching hand. The Latin chanting intensified, and the flames from the fireplace seemed to kick into an inferno as the dim glow turned into a bright, flickering orange-red. With horrified eyes, I watched as she brought the shadow knife across her shadow hands. I could tell she was hitting her peak as she was pretty much screaming the mantra now. And then the thing lifted up his head and howled a sound wholly unnatural and sinister. Two bullhorn shapes, fully visible now, affixed to his head. "Oh, Daddy," Lilith purred in ecstatic delight as her and his shadows fell limp atop each other. I tiptoed out in with a shocked and terrified numbness. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. I probably should have gotten in my car and drove cross-country, boarded a ship, and sailed for that point on this earth opposite of my house. Instead, I sat outside and blankly lit up my cigar. I came inside 25 minutes later. She was robed and in the kitchen alone, despite the fact I saw no one leave. I figured it would be that way. "You're home early, baby," she said with unbelievable coolness. "Do you want a sandwich?" I nodded dazedly and watched her prepare it for me, her left hand bandaged. "What happened?" I asked with a flat cadence. "Oh, this? A little cooking accident. It'll be fine." She gave me my sandwich, a peck on the lips, and together we went off to bed. Since that night, I've thought about leaving her, but to be honest, I am terrified of any possible repercussion. And yeah, I still love her in a way that isn't easily turned off. It's been 2 months, and those events have slowly become more and more like memories of a dream. But all the reality and horror of it was brought back to me today when I came home, and sitting on the table was a pregnancy test showing 2 solid lines. Beside it was a handwritten note that said, "Congratulations, Daddy.